Royce Christyn, welcome to the
Hello,
podcast.
hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your time, and I felt so bad already. We got into such a good conversation. That always happens with podcasts, man.
I know. I was enjoying the conversation ahead of time. I think we just decided it was time to just start
Yeah.
recording, and that's funny because I'm getting ready to do one, and I didn't tell you what the idea was, but the idea essentially is a podcast, like overhearing or eavesdropping on a conversation, which I guess is what like a lot of really good
Hmm.
podcasts are, if you think about it. I mean, the ones that I like are, you feel like you're listening to two old friends talk, and I think that is what was happening, even though we just met. But I think
Mm,
hopefully, if anybody listening, can learn from whatever we're talking about and
right.
whatever tangents we go off on, it's a success. But yeah, I know it always happens beforehand that the conversation's good. I also just have ADD and just like to talk and ramble, if anybody listening can't tell yet.
Hmm. No, I know, me too. But I also like have a balance with that, which is like the really cool thing can be said from having regular conversations like that's come out of nowhere. Like people with no expertise can just bring a new perspective into certain subjects.
Oh, 100%. I think we all have like the ability to tap in, and that's what that is. I mean, whatever you want to call that, like source, God, whatever. I think the flow, there's like this state where people can just suddenly connect up,
Mm,
and then it just comes out, and it's like, whoa, that is an incredible thing to say about the subject that you claim to have zero expertise or knowledge in. But yeah, I think that's sort of flow in a way, or connection, or whatever you want to call it, which is a lot of what I'm hoping people gather and gain from what I teach and from my books and everything else, because it really is just about sort of habitualizing flow in a way that's not
mm,
not something that feels like this monotonous task, because ultimately I work with students and clients on manifesting, which is a word that a lot of people are like, ugh, what? And I am too sometimes. I hate that word. Like I'm like super open about the fact, like I do not love the word manifesting. I don't love the phrases that we have available, but right now language is just like where it is, and that's what we have to use. Like I'm very sometimes I don't know. It's this. I'm a science nerd. Like I'm a huge science nerd. And anybody that reads my book, which is called Scripting the Life You Want, if anybody, I know it's right there. Thank you. It's so sweet. I love seeing it.
great
It's
book.
crazy. It's in
Yeah.
Spanish now. I'm really excited. Like it's just kind of it came out a week into the first week of the lockdowns in the U.S. So we were just sort of worried that it wouldn't do anything.
Oh,
And it like we had a whole book tour plan. It was gonna be all over the world. It was, it was this, that, and it was just like the weeks leading up to when it looked like, into February and March, it was like every week something would get shifted. And I was like, this is gonna work out how it works out. But I've been super blessed and lucky because it's all over the world now. It's just entered, I think it's third printing. And we're I think someone told me the other day, it's like, and this is not me bragging, I'm just so like still like gobsmacked and like what, I don't understand how this happened, but it's selling like 10 and a half copies a day, which is amazing, like worldwide. But
wow.
at this, yeah, it's crazy though. So like even you, I'm so grateful for contacting me, and people, it has this like these legs that make me really nervous about my next book, because I want the next one to do just as well, if not better. But
Yeah.
anyway, I'm tangenting a little bit, but I'm really excited to be talking today with you about that and kind of what I do and where I come from, because there's a lot of, I think, misunderstandings about manifesting and misconceptions that I like to sort of rectify and help people understand that we're always all manifesting and creating things
Hmm.
at all times. And I think that your audience probably has a pretty good crossover section of people who are already pretty familiar with this topic. So hopefully I bring a different spice or flavor to what it is or what it can be for people.
Yes, I agree. One of the things about um my career as a psychologist, I actually started out as a neuroscience major. Um
That's amazing. Yeah, we were talking before the show. One of my best friends in the world is Dr. Mona Sabani, and she wrote a book called Proof of Spiritual Phenomenon. She's a neuroscientist. So, and again, I'm sorry to, and I hope no one's offended. But like all of my closest friends are scientists or doctors. I'm a nerd for science. I'm such a weirdo in the space that I've been because there's a lot of like, about science that people get really weirded out. But that's amazing. That's awesome that is. So you were a neuroscience major and now you're a psychology major. Is that what it is?
Yes, exactly. I switched over to
What
psychology.
made you switch out of curiosity? Now I'm interviewing you, like.
Yeah. Uh, um, it was honestly all of the science. It was too science heavy for me. I love the mystical aspect of,
Yeah, like
of the
consciousness
science.
and yeah,
Exactly. And
but
yeah,
it's
the science and math, it was just too perfect for me. I was like,
yeah, no, I get that. I think that's why I mean, I started out as an actor, and that's what I did as a kid and a teenager and a young adult, then just in the
mm,
film industry. I mean, I've been in Hollywood and or New York my whole life, so I always wanted to be a writer. I mean, that sounds so weird to people because they're like, what? Like, and of course, Alexa's talking to me. If anybody, that's so funny. She never does that. But anyway, yeah, I think that like it's been nice having being able to have science as like a really amazing hobby with whether that's through connections or reading or studying, but not having to deal with what you just said, which is all like
yeah,
this super intense math and all the other aspects. Although I like math, I'm a math geek, but
right,
I could imagine it being a little overwhelming, unless you're I mean, unless that's your thing, and if it is, that's awesome.
right.
But I think psychology opens up a lot of doors. Personally, I mean, I don't know, what is there do you have like a specific type of psychology that you do? I'm so curious. Again, see, I'm trying not to interview you, but I'm so curious to get to.
Yeah, well, right now I'm just doing undergrad research. I mean, there's a lot of really cool labs at my university that do research with like addiction and depression and stuff that I want to start applying into. But yeah, now that I'm going into my grad school, I basically have to make that decision. I have to choose, well, like, what do I have to specialize into?
Right. Well, it's so interesting too now with psychedelics and depression and anxiety and mental health in general. Like it's this whole new world. I mean, it's not a new world. I mean, that's what's sort of frustrating, but it's like there
Right.
is this whole new quote unquote world opening up, I think, in the mainstream that is, I
Mm.
believe, and I hope. And again, this is from friends like Mona, really will help a lot of people in ways that they just didn't have access to before, and also in ways that weren't possible for them to be helped before. That was not a real sentence, but I think hopefully everybody listening knows what I'm saying.
Right, like extra explanations for what's going on.
Yeah, and I think that's like for me, it's interesting. I grew up in a family. For those who didn't read the book or don't want to, like I told Eric before, and I was like, my goal with any show or any interview that I do is that anybody listening doesn't have to read my book. They could just take away like the tools that I have to offer and use them, and then if they want to learn more, they can read. But one of the things I do write about my book that I don't talk about as much in interviews is I grew up in a family that was extraordinarily spiritual. My mom, my grandmother, all along that side of the family. And so I was exposed to, everything you could think of, from meditating to tarot cards to this idea of, there being, guardians and guides and things on the other side, and, seeing stuff, and from a super young age, like from a very, 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 very young age. And, I always say that which is true, like my friends went to Sunday school or synagogue or whatever, fill in the blank religious school, as you do as you're a child here. And, my Sundays were out learning, how to meditate or build a who knows what, whatever my grandma or mom would want me to do that day. So, I was exposed to this idea, which in some ways was super comforting or super delusional, depending on who's listening. But, it was comforting to me. And, I had a lot of very, I guess you would say, mystical experiences growing up, but it was also in some ways, like my grandmother was a super gifted, intuitive. I don't know what you would call it. She didn't charge money or do anything. She wasn't like famous for that, but I grew up with this very psychic family, which, by the way, it's super hard to lie or get away with anything when
Mm,
everybody on your mom's side,
I
especially when you're a
see.
teenager, can just like see right through you. So you learn that
Right.
really fast. But I struggle. I mean, I do to this day. Like when I was 16, I got diagnosed with anxiety, and I was really lucky because I think a lot of people who grow up in families that are open spiritually sometimes skew, and again, this doesn't apply to everybody, but favor towards let's not at all include psychology or any sort of westernized medicine or help. And I was really, really
Right.
lucky because my parents were like, no, 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 you need a therapist, you need a
Yeah.
psychiatrist, you need help. And I still to this day, like I'm weirdo in this world of new age spirituality, because I think on page 3 of my book I say, if you are sick, go to the doctor, which again, having a book coming out, we did not know. Obviously, a year and a half prior to that, it takes about a year and a half for a book to go through the process with the publishers. But, I do believe that, I think that the things that you can manifest when it comes to health, it's such a sticky situation and a weird area for people. And I always tell, if I'm doing a workshop or a talk, I say to somebody, if they ask about it, I say, look, what you should work on manifesting is attracting the right information, the right doctor, the best, maybe you end up reading an article or reading a book or seeing someone interviewed or however it works. Like your focus, it has to be on finding the best care, the best person, the best people, the best group anywhere in the world. And that is, I think, a key towards, how to like sort of this other way of looking at what manifestation can be. So for health, I'm very like pro, obviously this is a podcast about psychedelics. So I'm, very pro both sides of the spectrum, but I think psychedelics is becoming more westernized and mainstream. I don't know, you could correct me on that if that's not true, but I think that, if people have to have a balance and in what it is that they expect from manifesting, what they expect from spirituality, and also from the westernized side of things. And if you can find that balance, then you can live a really amazing life.
Right. Yeah. And I think could correct me if I'm wrong. That could be the difference between trying to manifest something like winning the lottery versus like trying to manifest something like for your own health or for someone's health, like that actually has so much energy behind it.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I've been doing this a really long time, and it was sort of just this like, again, like I used to be on Disney Channel, Nickelodeon, like I used to do this as this was my fascination from when I was really little, because this branch of whatever you want to call it, even because it's sort of this in-between state of manifesting, it's self-help, it's spirituality, just fascinated me. And I developed my own method of scripting, which is an older method, but I updated it to make it easy because I was really bad at visualizing when I was a teenager. But I used it to, book, I was Selena Gomez's boyfriend,
Yes.
star on Wizards of
Yes,
Waverly
sir.
Place, and I was, I got to do a lot. I directed documentaries and stuff, so I was using this method I came up with, which is really easy. And I could tell everybody what it is really quick, and we could talk about it more in a little while because I want to respond to what you just said. But essentially, I have been keeping just a journal, of my experiences in my
Mm.
life in Hollywood, and just paragraph or two a night. And there was this exercise that always had attracted me, literally, but I felt like a nut job. No offense. I felt like a crazy person, literally, because the scripting, as it used to be up until my book, was this out loud exercise. So, imagine me at 17
That's
in
true.
my, or studio apartment with a roommate, going like, boy, I love, my new Mercedes, and having all these great jobs and having all this money. Like, it just felt like, okay, this is really weird. Or driving my 1996 Toyota Corolla. This is again back in like 2005, but still, driving my old car, like, and I could get there, I could feel it emotionally, but it just, and I would have some amazing successes with it, but then like it wouldn't work 90% of the time. But when it did, it would like, I would manifest like a huge
Mm.
job or a ton of money or something amazing. And about a year or two later, I was, I'd been keeping this journal, and something just clicked, because every morning I would write out, instead of in manifesting, you want to look at, whatever it is, health, money, winning the lottery, whatever. You don't want to write down, I want this thing, or I wish I had this thing. Every morning, it's and there's actually a lot of, and I go over them in the book, a lot of science behind this and psychological evidence that supports this actually being a really healthy habit. But you want to write down the things you want in the morning, and this is what the whole process is. It just all clicked one day. but 5 to 7 once, but you want to turn them into intentions. So if you want, we'll just use your example, to win the lottery, you would put, I intend to win the lottery. If you want to be, the best in your field, I intend to be the best in my field. I intend, and what I learned, as the years went on, but it really does work, is you always want to fold in some really stupid things, like really dumb crap that is going to happen that day. So I intend for my dentist appointment to go great, or I intend for the whatever I think I'm doing, grocery shopping trip to be amazing. Then and that should take literally that intention list. You could, if you're on a roll and you're feeling it, you can go and go. But I always tell people 5 to 7 is good. And then on the next page, I just use a notebook, or you can type it. You can do whatever. People get. I've learned since the book came out that I had no control over it. It's all, there's a lot of hands in a pie when, or hands in the kitchen, if you will, when doing a book. The whole writing with a pen and paper is on the cover, but you can absolutely type this out. You can absolutely use your computer for this. But on the next page, or on the next virtual page, you want to do I call it a knowing or belief list. And I just write that at the top. You always want to date it right at the top. So you do your wants, but you write them out as intentions. Then on the next page, you do your beliefs. And you take 2 or 3 things from what you just wrote out. I intend to, whatever, have a great dental appointment. I intend to win the lottery. And if you, and you'll see as you do it day by day, there will be things on that want list that actually you feel are more realistic to happen. And so you're going to put those 2 down as, I know I'm going to have a great time with the dentist today. I know I'm going to have a great grocery shopping trip. I know I'm going to, win the lottery, whatever it is. And then this is where I kind of clicked. I was doing those things and I was writing a journal at night. Something just kind of came to me. I was like, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. What if, so I'm writing a journal entry every night before bed. What if in my little manifesting notebook in the morning, instead of just writing out this, it took 2 minutes, this want and belief list, what if I wrote out a journal entry pretending it's the end of the night? So it's in the morning, first thing. And I was like, what if in the morning, first thing, I write pretending it's the end of the day, like I normally would in my journal. And I write out exactly the same way that I write in my journal, how the day went. And it was like immediately within 10 days, I booked that job with Selena. And that was something I really, really wanted at that point in my life. And what I did was it was amazing. It was magic. So I would write out, the day was great. And again, you're folding in, you have to fold in whatever's really happening that day. Like you have to add in, if you're going to do something that day, or you're going to do an interview for your podcast, or you have a class, or you have an exam, put that in there, because you would put that in your journal at night. And it's really important to do both. You got, and I tell a lot of people who are starting to actually write, do their journal for about a week, so they get used to how they write, what your style is, and how much. Some people only write a few sentences. Some people like to write pages and pages. So you want to find out what your journal entry looks like when you're writing or typing. And you just, in the morning, you do that. And then it's arbitrary. It could be any day, but one day out of the week, I usually do it on Sundays, I do a longer script, and it's a 10-day. So you just jump ahead and pretend that it's 10 days in the future. And this allows you to fold in some of your bigger wants, or your bigger, dreams or goals. And you'll see it's like the most magical thing, because things start to come. And there's, I have so many things I could tell people, and I'm happy to go over them, like the science behind a lot of it, which I learned later, because this was when I was 18, 19 years old. I'm 36 now. But so long story short, I started telling my friends about it over the years. It worked so well for me. And that sort of developed into like this really, like, I was like very embarrassed. I didn't want to be known for this. And but people would, because I was in this industry, and I had friends in all different places, real estate and legal and, medical and science. And they were like, well, teach me. So I would have this whole like secret side thing going on, where I would, coach friends and family. And then it ended up being a real thing. And finally someone just sort of, not really, but basically verbally slapped me over the head and was like, hey, like, you really need to share this with people, because it works so well and it's so easy, and it's not hard. It's like this really simple thing. And I think part of the beauty of scripting this way is I'm very much an advocate of, if you don't feel it, don't do it. Like I didn't do it this morning. Like, not because I wasn't having a great mood or anything like that, but sometimes it's just, like I don't rate. I try to keep your real journal. And in that journal, you want to put the good, the bad, the ugly, anything that happened that day. You always want to keep that one consistent, because what ends up happening is your morning script and your night journal, when you're doing it right, will literally be almost indistinguishable from each other, which is where it becomes so cool. And there's a lot of actual neuroscience behind it, like your reticular activating system, which is essentially your brain's filter, and how, for anybody listening, let's pick three things right now, like Barney, the King of England, and Art Nouveau. Okay, so those three things: Barney, King of England, Art Nouveau. And Art Nouveau could be what, it could be a style of decorating or a style of art. But if we say Barney, 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 now anybody listening, and this, because we basically program our own brains on what to look at, because they're filtering out all the stuff that is unnecessary to our survival. Because the reticular activating system is essentially like your brain's filter. So when you are just sort of going around, your day to day and not, consciously programming it, which you're doing with your want list, your intentions in the morning. But if you don't, you're originally, when we were cave people, that whole system in our brains was just for, survival. So, food, sex, all the things that we need to keep the species going. But as we became, more evolved and conscious and whatnot, it works in other ways, and it's actually super easy. I just did it, Barney, King of England, Art Nouveau, to anybody listening. And it's nothing scary or spooky. It's just that now that I've said that, you're going to see Barney, you're going to see or hear someone say Art Nouveau, and it's because your brain has been peaked. And this, there's anything you watch or listen to, this is the case. Your brain has been primed. It goes, oh, okay, this person wants me to look for this. Like, it sounds weird talking about your brain as a separate entity, but for the purposes of explaining this, it helps. When you're essentially programming. And I had a really incredible story that I didn't get to put in the book because it happened right before it came out, but I talk about it. I've talked about it a lot over the years, and it was a real estate client. She has me come in once a year, big firm right on Sunset Boulevard, Beverly Hills, like doing like the $1 million houses, like the big stuff. And I always go in and I do like a workshop with all the new realtors. And this one girl had been there like almost a whole year, and she was new, and she was, maybe like 24, 25, but had just started her real estate career and was so excited to be at this firm, but had sold nothing, like literally nothing. And was, that's kind of a big important part of being, in any good firm. So I did the whole thing with her, and she came up and told me what was going on. Her boss is a good friend of mine. And I said, let me work with her for a couple. This was right before Christmas. I said, let me work with her just for a few weeks. Let's just see. And everybody agreed. It was all good. So she did the scripting every day. And I said, okay, we'll just, do the super easy, your intent, your fake journal, and then your real one at night. And I promise. She's like, well, that's it. I'm like, yeah, it's like, it should not be hard. Just do that. Trust me. So I think it was about a week and a half, 2 weeks later, she was walking, at lunch. There's a bookstore like right outside of their office, like really close. And they would always go to a coffee shop next to that bookstore. And on the way to get coffee, and she passes this bookstore like every single day, she saw the sign. It was a book signing. Extraordinarily famous person, very much a money person, who was doing a book or talk and book signing. And she was a fan of this person. And anyway, and this is just a few years ago, and she was all excited, and she's like, oh, I'm just going to skip my lunch break and go see, because I really have always wanted to meet this person. So he was wrapping up his talk, and she went up and introduced herself. And he's like, I hate LA. I actually have, because, she said what she did. And he goes, I actually have a property I'm trying to sell, and I hate my old real estate agent. He's like, where do you work? And she told him. Long story short, she got his listing and it sold, and it was like a huge amount of money for the firm, and it was right before her cutoff date. Now, what was really interesting though was the sign outside was like one of those chalkboard like restaurant signs usually, like, and she asked one of the workers of the bookstore, she's like, how long has that sign been out there? Because she's like, this is someone I'm a huge fan of. And they're like, oh, like 2 months. So she walked by this opportunity in a way, if you think about it, right? She walked by this person. You would think you would recognize or look or notice, your brain would go, hey, there's your favorite singer, or there's your favorite actor, there's your favorite whatever. It's going to be in this space right next to you. But because our brains get so focused on whatever it is we tell that it to be focused on, we miss stuff. And what scripting does in many ways is it reprimes that filter for you. And she didn't specifically write this man's name down, but she was very clear on the fact that she wanted to bring in an opportunity where she could sell something and make a big splash and get her first big commission and stay, keep her job, stay at the firm. And her brain then, knowing that's what, sort of just, it knew. Your brain knows, it remembers everything. This is a really crazy trick. Again, not in the book, but I love this one. I do this in my workshops a lot. This is actually backed by neuroscience, and Dr. Mona Sabani will attest to this. So you can actually say out loud, and it will make you feel nuts because you got to do it for the first 2 days. But if you lose your keys a lot, like I used to do, or I use my water bottle, like I've like my reusable water bottle, my keys, my wallet. I always used to lose them, always, just constant. I could put it down, and 3 seconds later, I'm like, oh my bleeping, what the hell is going on? So what because of all the stuff I had studied, I called a neuroscientist friend of mine and said, would it work hypothetically if I out loud was like brain, because your brain is taking in literally everything spatially that you're doing, and it's just not, you don't need to be aware of. That's why we unconsciously, quote unquote, will just drop our keys, because it's not part of our survival, that like in that moment our brain feels like it's okay to just sort of drop where that happened and not let you remember. So I said, would it work if I was like, brain, where are my keys, or brain, where's my bottle? She's like, oh God, it sounds nuts, but yeah, try it. And I did, and it worked. And I have students all over the world now who will literally like, brain, where are my keys? Brain, where's my... And what happens is you will feel your body. It's so weird. I did it last night for something. You'll feel your body just sort of turn, or like, you might take a minute or two. Like, don't like sit there, go brain, where are my keys, and wait for your body to be like, just go about doing what you were doing. You will naturally, within about 2 or 3 minutes, get to your keys, your wallet, or your water bottle. Go ahead. I know you wanted to say something. Sorry, it was a long tangent, but...
Basically just this idea, this balance of internal and external type of things, like just how, like, for example, is there a limit to the signs that are going on, or are you just kind of focusing your attention onto
Well,
the...
there's a lot more to it than just did you say the signs or the science? Sorry.
Yeah, the signs, like when you like the
Oh, the
things.
signs. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not all that. It's not all like, that's just one aspect that and it's it explains honestly more than anything your intention list, your want list. But no, it works. There's a lot of things happening, and there is a spiritual component that can't be explained by science. I do my best in the book. I think I do probably, if you are a science nerd, you will really like the second half of my book, because it goes really, really, really deep into why this could be working. And we talk about how quantum physics is a mess right now. And a lot of people in the law of attraction world really try to focus in that direction. And it's just a dumpster fire. And I have friends who are quantum physicists, and they not on the record, but I could say it for them. It's just a mess, and they're all fighting, and it's bad. And it's just like, So my focus has been for a long time. It occurred to me, and no one's going to be surprised who's stuck around this long and listen, is it's neuroscience. It's going to be in our brain. It's going to be in the study of consciousness, which does include things like psychedelics, which does include things like psychology, pharmacology, where consciousness exists. Is our, like, what is our brain? Is it an interface, or is it an antenna? Is it an actual thing? Where so what I know for sure, what I could say without, I'm not a scientist, so I don't risk my scientific career, is people who are complete non-believers in any sort of manifesting of this idea of law of attraction, which in many ways I don't blame them, because what has been so commercialized over the years, which I felt like I could possibly make a dent in changing, and I hopefully am doing that with this book and with the show and the other things that I work on, is that it's a lot more about having fun and emotionally feeling the feeling. And if you're really good at visualizing, or you're really horrible, and I was horrible up until about a year ago. I just started, and I don't know why, at like 35, my brain was like, oh, here, I'm like, well, this would have been great because some of the most, and I've been lucky to be around so many because of my job, you know, so many successful people. I know personally two people who are in that billionaire class, and I talk to them like, what do you do? What do you like? What's your secret? What's the thing? What you know? And one of a billionaire who was a legitimate, actually, she is the, I will say this, she's the widow of a billionaire, but
Mm,
she said that her husband taught her, and she's in her 90s now, and she said that her husband taught her um, two things back in like the 70s or late 60s when they started dating, and that was um, go into every situation in your mind, say to yourself, this is going to be easy and fun. And every phone call and every conversation, every single time before you do
mm,
anything, which if anybody out there is a fan of like Abraham Hicks and Esther Hicks, they talk about segment intending, which is this idea before any new segment of your day, like before you go to a class or before you go to the store, before you go to, you know, an event, you just, it doesn't have to be, I think that's part of it too. Like it's been so like mired in this, like people have made it seem exhausting manifesting, and it really is so much more simple and easy. So, you know, it is as much about just doing very simple changes to your mental mindset and your framework as it is taking them the actions. You know, you can't just
hmm.
say like, I'm going to be a billionaire, and then, you know, that's
Exactly.
great, and then just expect it to happen. Now, I'm not gonna lie, because I've been working with people for so long. Like I've had, you asked about winning lottery. Well, I've had some people who do professional poker. I've worked with people who
Mm,
are like literally they love their Vegas, they love their slot machines, and I mean, we went on a trip to Vegas. Oh my god, about 6 or 7 years ago, and we hit like, I think it was like, and I'm not joking, it was like 30 something hand pay, which is when, you know, you're winning over $1,500. My husband and I,
wow.
jackpots. And I part of it is I think I just don't care. Like, you know, like, I didn't go in there like, that's the thing too. You can't be like, I have to make this work. I need this to be a thing. Like, you have to just have fun. And like, we were not putting in, this is a question I get to for anybody listening, like, you know, $10,000 like into these machines. Like, I think that our limit for that entire trip was like maybe $300. And it just was like, it was so funny because at one point we were on opposite ends of this casino, and it was the same casino workers having to give out the jackpots. And literally, she was running. At one point, we have pictures, which I think are going to go in the next book, of our machines side by side by side by side winning. So
Oh wow.
you can, you know, but let me tell you how that worked in the manifesting. It wasn't as much signs, but you're priming your brain. And I believe that our brains, and I'm sure this is a podcast about psychedelics, obviously people listening understand there's a lot we can't see in our normal day-to-day lives. So I believe that what's happening is when we're priming our brain, you know, not on psychedelics or on, but whatever, you know, like if you're just doing this in the morning, there are other facets of reality or whatever people want to believe this is. Cause I don't know. I changed my mind a lot on what's going on in reality. But anyway, you know, we felt a strong urge to leave the hotel casino we were staying at, just using that example, and go across the street. But you know, we've been together for almost 15 years. So we, you know, have this sort of, you know, in sync thing with ourselves, but it's a place we never probably would have played at, just using that as an example. But you're priming your brain. So it's not as much about seeing, you know, the signs. It's following that intuition. You'll see it. You kind of just create like a new, very simple framework in yourself. And really, it's not even like that you're redoing it, because most people have never even taken the time, because of just how society and culture is here, to just make this framework. So doing this, I mean, again, you don't have to buy the book. You can just do your two little lists in the morning, write a fake journal entry, and then keep a real journal at night. And that alone creates a framework in you. And it's also sort of a launching pad or a springboard for
Mm,
other manifesting tools, which I'm really excited about, you know, for my next book, using essentially your space, your office, your car, your house as a tool for manifesting. Because again, it's all about our brains. It's all about we're feeding our brains. I love your room. Like, you have such a
yeah.
great vibe in there, because imagine though, if you had like pictures of like, you know, gore, you know, pictures of like, really, like, I always tell people, look at the words you hang on your walls. This is what I've been studying for the last actually 4 years, getting ready for the next book. But like, I've learned so much about just, I mean, you're fine. I mean, you have like the, you know, you have you have really positive messages, and it doesn't have to be all candies and rainbows.
Wait,
But
I want to show you one thing I have hung up above me.
let's
Uh,
see.
a
Oh,
billion
that's awesome.
dollars.
There you go. That's great.
I look at
Well,
that all the time.
and you know what's great about having $1 million bill hung up, especially in front of you because it's right in front of your computer, is even if you're not consciously focusing on it, your brain is taking that in. And the science of how our environment affects us is I've put together from so many different cultures and backgrounds because I started to realize that there are all these different modalities, like there's feng shui, which is was started in China. There's vastu, which is more Vedic and comes out of India, and then there's like the Celtic, like the pagan and the Wiccan like ideas of what a house should be. And I started to just kind of incident, like I just read, my mom had a book on pagan like house stuff, and I happened to be I'm a big believer in always bettering yourself and taking classes and things that are sort of outside of your wheelhouse.
Mm.
So I was taking a class on feng shui, and I was like, wait a minute. I was like, hold on. I was like reading this book at my mom's house, and it's almost word for word, and it's an old book. What I'm learning in this feng shui class, I'm like, how did these people
Mm.
on these islands, meaning in the UK, figure out or come to the same conclusion that people 10,000 miles away in China came up with? And then it started to snowball from there. And I was like, oh, and thank God the science is so much more robust for our environment and how it has an impact on us. So I took that and started using my friends and family who were part of this years long experiment. But, I wanted to just play with, have you ever heard of a vision board, right? People
Oh
would put like,
yeah. I
yeah.
love your
So
vision board.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So I write about one in the book, and actually that's a great springboard for anybody who wants to get a heads up or start on this, with the next part of my book series is going to be. But yeah, it's called a picture script, and essentially you do, like, if you pick a goal, you can get a poster board and say, I use the example of, if you want to go to Hawaii or move to Hawaii and get a new job. So you can't just look at, you can't just do that, like put pictures of Hawaii. So and some people get a little weirded out by this, but when they do it, they're like, oh, okay. And now with AI, it's like especially the generative AI, and there's so many apps where you can just make pictures of yourself now. It's so much easier than when I wrote the book, by the way. It's like amazing. Because it's like, I feel like that's I don't know. I truly do not believe I manifested that, but boy, was that a nice tool to have now, especially when I'm talking about this, because before, when that book first came out, and in all the years prior where I was teaching people this, they'd pick their main goal or two of them, and instead of just doing a random pick all these pictures of models or people they don't know, I make you get a picture of yourself that you love, and if it's a physical thing, find a body that you like, and you are making paper dolls of yourself. Well, now you don't have to do that, because I mean, even there's a Remini is a really good app
Mm.
for making. You can upload like 8 pictures of yourself, and like you can literally like just pick what you wanted to do, and it's like eliminates all that. But if you don't want to do that, it's really
Wow.
fun. You pick a picture of yourself looking really happy from at any point in your life, but as long as it's not like from when you were a kid, it has to be something more recent-ish, where you look like an adult. And you will then place yourself into these situations. But there's another component, which is you don't just, a lot of manifesting teachers talk about focusing on the end result, and that's great. But I have seen so much more success when you focus on the steps. So
Mm.
what you do is you got to find out, if you want to move and get a job in Hawaii, again, just using the example from the book, what moving company you're going to use here where you live now. What realtor are you going to use? Find them. What pharmacy are you going to use if you have prescriptions or you get sick or whatever in Hawaii? What's the grocery store near the place you want to live in Hawaii? What is going to be your local day-to-day life in Hawaii going to be? And adding those things. So you're going to just go in order. You could picture of yourself in front of the place you're living in now, or inside of it. You could put up, then you don't be in every single image, but you're going to then just put the realtor, the moving company, the plane. What airline are you going to take? How are you going to get there when you land? And you just put these things. Doesn't have to be a million pictures. It could be like 10, 15. And then you get to Hawaii, and then you can, in the middle, you're going to put essentially the final quote unquote goal, but then you're going to stretch it out a little bit. Make an image of yourself. You could just take a happy image and just, on iPhones, you can just remove the background now. There's also a great app or website called
Mm.
removebg.com. I'm not affiliated with them at all, but it's really good for removing backgrounds. Anyway, so then you just put like your day-to-day life, like what is that going to be? What grocery store? Put in the very functional things, and it does something that we understand a lot of it, but doing this kind of vision board and also putting up the words of the places, the things you want. And that's where the scripting element comes in, because you're going to pick your most successful thing. And then you're going to essentially, or you're the thing that you want the most success in, and you're going to just stretch that out into this visual thing. Now, with the environmental scripting, we've just taken that concept and basically put it on our walls. Now, you're not putting paper dolls of yourself on the walls. That's not weird, but you can. I mean, some people do, like, they'll take their picture script images they've made that they really like, and they'll put them in a, you know, don't have to hang them all over the house where you're having to explain to people why is there a fake picture of you, you know, working at your favorite job or living in this house. But your environment is such a huge part. One thing that's really powerful is decorating your room or your office for the place you want to be. So if you want to be, you know, working in New York as a psychologist, what's that bedroom going to look like, and do it.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that, because it's like a lot of people, I feel like, with manifesting will see it like some kind of escape. Like they'll be like, "Oh no, I'm not happy with my life, and therefore I need all of these external things." But it's
Yeah,
like maybe
it's
you
such
could
an inner
do,
process.
but maybe you can do both. Maybe you can alter your reality and be happy in it, you
Exactly.
know?
Yeah. Well, and that is, oh, I cannot tell you, Eric, how hard that was. Truly for me. Like, and like, especially when I was younger. Just I remember one of my really good friends, is a really famous actress. Probably everybody listening would have heard of her and would know her to see her. And we were kids. We were, you know, in our late teens together in LA, and she got a huge TV show. And I was like, you know, she was very into learning about manifesting like I was. And this is right around the time I came up with scripting. And she goes to me, well, you know what the secret is to manifesting? And I'm like, what? She's like, it's being happy where you are. And she was in, without giving too much identifying information, but she was in working at just kind of like a crappy restaurant, you know, where people weren't super nice to her, a very touristy spot in the middle of Hollywood. You know, she was at one point my roommate, you know, which wasn't bad, I hope, but, you know, it wasn't like what she wanted to be, which was this award-winning actress. And she was really miserable for about a year. And then she ended up meeting a really famous actor, and he said, oh, you just have to be happy. Like, it doesn't matter if you really are. Like, after a few days, just fake it and you will be. Now, that doesn't work for everybody. I'm not saying that's what everybody on here should do. That's not my advice. But she found things that she appreciated. She started really, really low. Like, she really liked her coworkers. Even though maybe she hated the place and she hated her boss, she really liked her coworkers. And then she started to find just little appreciations in things. And it snowballed so fast that she used that. And people can incorporate this. One of the things I often do is just a gratitude list in the morning. So I'm grateful for, and it has to be real. Like, it has to be like, I am grateful for doing this awesome podcast. You know, that was what I did yesterday. I was really excited to do this, and I'm so glad that I am doing it with you. But, you know, you write the things that you're happy for, even if everything feels like it's falling apart. There's always going to be something. I'm grateful for. Some people it's their childhood, for some people it's not. For some people it's their children or their friends. And yeah, it can't be an escape, because it has to be a balance between, like you said, in some ways you have to be able to find that feeling and find that joy of what the thing is that you want, or find, you know, maybe it's not joy, but whatever the happiness is in that thing that you're manifesting. At the same time, though, it's sort of like I'm a big believer in the only way out is through. So, you know, you can't skip over, and but it doesn't have to take forever. You can just find joy where you are. And really working on your environment is like, I've had so much success with it. I'm mad I didn't put it, like, I was already starting to lay the foundation. I actually had a whole second book written, and the environmental stuff, just altering your environment, most of which I've told everybody. I mean, it's really simple. But it was so powerful that I actually stopped myself, and I was like, oh, I gotta like I'm very much a believer in, like, I have to live what I write about. Like, I have to be like, I have to be my own test subject, or else it's not authentic. And that's a big problem in the world of spirituality and new age mysticism, and also manifesting, where people are just regurgitating and regurgitating. But no, like, it's not perfect. We don't know everything yet. And we have to subject ourselves, I think, especially if we're going to be any sort of authoritative figure or any sort of authority in this world. I think we have to be very open and honest with the things that manifesting is not we're not there yet. Like, I think a lot of teachers like to say, well, this is the key to everything. And it's like, well, no, why is this environmental scripting working like 10 times better than half of the crap that's out there? That was my big, like, oh, wow, okay. So there are other pieces to it. I think,
Right.
understanding that and going into it, with that mindset, like of curiosity and just sort of exploration, really, really, really helps you manifest things. Now, I'm not saying that you can't just use the method that I write about, but I'm a big proponent of,
Hmm.
if you hate scripting or you're not a big typer or writer, then like there are a lot of really easy other tools out there and other authors. And I want people to create the lives that they want. So whether that's via my book or somebody else's tools, I'm
Hmm.
happy either way, because to me, the happier we all are as a collective society, the better the future is going to be.
Yeah, right. Because if everybody just starts changing their environment around them, that eventually, if everybody changes their environment to try to shape their ideal reality, which I mean, it's kind of like, you know, that's the thing about this technique that like you wonder what if the wrong people get this and start making their environment negative.
Yeah, I'm super honest about it. Like even in scripting life you want in the first book, the only book right now. But we're talking about the second one too here. Yeah, I mean the truth is that a lot of people don't, a lot of teachers don't talk about it. It's like, yeah, but the thing, like, yes, people with this information who are bad, of course, could use it for bad. I actually go into memetics and memes and how I thought memes were just like funny pictures and like,
Right.
I don't know if I can curse on here, but you know what I mean? Like S posting, like just like, just like funny like stuff. And then I found out I have a whole chapter on it in scripting life you want, because I realized that this is a whole field of science and study, and they like and essentially memes and memetics are where, so you have we have biological evolution, and then you also have that includes everything from viruses, like actual physical viruses, and you also have essentially and it's such an overused and conflated phrase, and I really take all of that out and just talk about the science. There was this huge renaissance about this in the 90s, but there also is cultural viruses, and that's this idea of a mind virus. But what they were trying to figure out is like, we understand why we do a lot of things as humans. We understand why we build shelter, why we wear clothes, like biologically, evolutionarily, why that's important. But what we didn't understand, and science didn't understand, was like, well, why do we build roller coasters and Ferris wheels, and why do we have opera? There's literal no at all reason, as far as biology goes, to have that.
Mm.
And it's really fascinating because an evolutionary biologist was the first person to ever come up with this idea and call it a mimetic. And he was someone who just didn't believe in anything spiritual or anything on the other side. And what happened was, in the 90s, they started to really study this and they were trying to find it. They were looking in the brain and dendrites. They were looking, like to see if like there's a space where we're like basically, because you ever see like this huge fad happen, like bell bottoms in the 70s. I was not alive then, but, just things that we know about, like these culture, the flappers in the 20s, like, the 90s grunge. You have like, there's so many things that, you look at all of a sudden, like, or there's a performer or an actor everywhere all of a sudden, because we're somehow culturally like basically passing this mind quote unquote virus. But it can be anything from being obsessed with a certain celebrity to doing something totally different and random and new that's like a fad. And that's been there as long as we've been, conscious beings on this planet. And there's not what happened with a lot of the scientists, a lot of them who were just like staunch non-believers in anything on the other side. Again, this is the 90s. Things have changed. There's so many more open-minded scientists now. But what happened was, you read a lot of these books, and you get to the end, and you're like waiting for this big, like, okay, we're gonna figure this out. And they're like, you can feel, and I've had the pleasure of talking to some of these authors and these researchers, later years at that point after they've written these books, but they couldn't understand why meditating or closing your eyes and just quieting your mind was the only thing that seemed to start to reduce people who would feel like they had like like this memetics, this meme thing going on in themselves. And this is in the 90s. This is before memes was this culture. Like I say in the book, the most clever thing that the mind virus of meme memetics has done is make everybody think it's just funny pictures online and goofy crap. Like that in itself is a meme. That is a
Wow.
cultural virus we've passed to each other, but they develop and they mutate just like biological viruses, cultural viruses, and not all are bad. Like brushing our teeth and stuff like inventing toothbrushes, like no one else in the animal kingdom does that. Like there are positive memes and memetics, but it is still by like a cultural thing, and there's this whole cultural virus thing happening. So you have people who take manifesting and take these tools, and that's why I actually write about in the book, because I like to be perfectly frank with people. Like, yeah, but the thing is, like, I'm not the first one, and like this information has been out there in so many different ways. I mean, probably people would have called manifesting magic 100 years ago, you know what I mean? And
Mm.
before that, people would have been hung for it, or burned at the stake or whatever. It's just it's a different form. I think there's a lot. I like the science aspect of the type that I do, but yeah, back to your original point, in the wrong hands, it absolutely does, and there's this big thing that just ticks me off, if I'm being totally honest. You hear so many manifesting teachers talk about it, and it just makes me mad. In this manifesting community, they're like, oh, you can't create in another's environment. Well, the science of memetics, which is, again, it's a whole chapter in my book, just disproves that immediately, like immediately. And when I learned that, when I used to have clients and students who would, and these were like people who are already great manifestors, they would get recommended to come talk to me if they were having a big issue in their life, or like suddenly didn't feel like they could, their stuff wasn't happening for them. And 9 times out of 10, it would be related in a way to memetics. And the way to break yourself out of that, for anybody who doesn't want to buy the book and just wants to know, is the picture script we talked about, which, I see now looking back, like, wow, everything was leading to where I'm going next, which is this environmental manifesting idea. But
Mm.
I'm not a gatekeeper. Like, that's why I like to just kind of let everybody play with it themselves and
Wow.
experiment with it. But it was really wild how, you have this world where people are like, no one can create in your environment. Well, yeah, they can. And I think it is a little bit about having like your own, like, the stronger you are at telling the universe, whatever, God, whatever you would call it, putting that want list together, even if you don't believe in God, like putting out your intentions and rewiring your brain and your mindset, the stronger I think you have a defense in front of you from things not working. But
Right.
sometimes people will have, like, who are great manifestors, really crappy stuff happen. And there's a lot of really interesting studies and science that back up why this different kind of vision board and we go through it like step by step by step. Like it's chapter 10, it's the last chapter of the book, but it's a very easy to read, but it's a lot of pictures, and I make it as simple as possible because I think it's important for people to know and be aware, and that's why I say, like, yeah, like, people can get sick, people can get killed. Like, I really against the people who are like, oh, well, people who are, I'm not going to name anything because I don't want to say anything that's going to be triggering, but, X traumatic event, it's their fault because they manifested it. Well, that's
Right.
crazy to me. And I think it's offensive to the survivors and the people who, go through stuff or who have family. I just don't love that part of
Yeah.
that world of manifesting, which is something that unfortunately is really prevalent. And I hope that, I know it's not just me, there's a few of us who are trying to, be realistic and also give
Yeah.
people tools that hopefully, that would be great. Wouldn't that be the goal, that we have a tool to not have these things happen to us? But right now, to say that people who have horrible things happen to us it's their fault is I think just so crazy to me. I can't even, if you could just tell
Oh
how
yeah.
angry it makes me. And I say that in the book.
Yeah.
I like to think that people will hopefully
That's right.
learn manifesting from a perspective, because then you get upset. I've seen people like fall apart psychologically because they don't understand why they're not manifesting the thing that they want. And there's a lot of other factors. There is your environment, there is memetics, there's a lot of things, and it's really easy to work on and fix. But until we have that concrete proof that says it fixes everything, you will never hear me say that it does.
Mm.
But it can really make your life, I think, a lot easier and better. And there's a lot of tools in there that have a lot of great psychological benefits and, are really healing. So if you've been through a traumatic event, this is a non-delusional manifesting way to, kind of help yourself out and refocus on the future.
Exactly. Yeah, because it really, I think comes down to those few things. Like yeah, you can wake up and you can choose to grab your phone and start comparing yourself, or to create that space for that the flow state to come in.
I forgot. Thank you for reminding me quickly. If you do want to try scripting out, the reason I like a notebook is because I just know myself, like,
Mm,
and most people I know, when you open your laptop to type, like notifications are coming in. So every night before I go to bed, I put it on Do Not Disturb. I do the same thing with my phone, but don't check your phone before you do this. Do not, like, even if you're going to type it out on your phone, that's totally fine. Do not read your text. Don't read the news. Turn off all that crap before you go to bed. Just literally put your phone in a do not disturb state, so there's like no notifications. You could turn it right back on when you're done, but oh my god, the difference of your life just from not checking your phone in the first hour. And there is science, has nothing to do with manifesting, that explains why that's such a great idea. Like, no social media. No, I mean, you can watch empowering things. Like, if you want to put something on YouTube, like, something uplifting or inspirational speech or whatever gets you going, or if you're religious, if you would like hear your someone in your religion talk about or what that is, if you like mantras, or there's so many things you can put on that are positive. But that first really 15 minutes to an hour, just don't check your phone. It's changed my life. I've had my phone on silent since
yeah.
2012. That's been fantastic. But you
Wow.
do want to do the scripting before you start your day, essentially,
Right.
like you said, because like you said it perfectly. It's a choice. Like, you can open up your phone and start comparing yourself to other people, and make yourself feel horrible. And that's you programming that filter we talked about at the beginning.
Exactly.
And
Right.
you don't want
Yeah.
to do that.
Like when you were telling yourself, like uh, with the keys thing, like you're vocalizing that you're knowing what your keys are, and
Yeah.
it's such a simple thing,
Yeah,
honestly.
it is. It's just, and you're literally just going, brain, show me where my wallet is. Brain, show me where my keys are.
Yeah.
And it's why, like, people listening, like, it's so funny. I remember the first time I was doing a workshop online, and because it was COVID, and that was it. So it was like, instead of a book signing, they were doing everything online, and I told people about this. I was so excited, and about half the class was, like, 100 people in there, and half of them were looking at me, and I could, you could see them on Zoom. They're like, "What?" I'm like, "No, no, 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 no! I promised you." It sounds crazy. So it was 3 days over the course of a week, the class. So anyway, all the people came back by the last day, because they all tried. I made them. I was like, just try it. I just try it. I know I sound nuts, but just try it.
Shock.
And they all did. And they, like, I think there was one guy who just didn't try it and just thought it was nuts, but like the other stuff in the class, so we stuck around, thank God. But and now, so you just do it for a day or two, and then you can just do it in your head. Like, so I'll just be like, silently in my mind, go like, okay, brain, where's my wallet, or where's this? And it works. It's wild. You just say it, you let it go, and within 2 minutes, I guarantee you, your eyes will move. Like, because you got to remember, our eyes are actually our brain. They are literally part of our brain. So our eyes will, like, a lot of time that happened to me. Like, I'll say, where is this? And then I'll just like look over, think I'm looking at something else, and then I'm like, oh my god, my brain has put the eyes in the visual space where the thing that I asked it to look for is. So
Right.
it works the exact same way with what you feed your brain. I mean, if you think of your brain the way you think of your body, and a lot of people have a lot easier time. I know. Like, believe it or not, it sounds like it wouldn't be, but feeding our brains better things than we do our bodies. Like, it's, for some reason, when people hear, like, oh, I guess I could, like, not go on social media first thing in the morning, and it's really way easier to do than, say, starting a whole new physical diet. I'm not
Mm,
saying don't do those things. I'm just saying, like, it's a lot easier than you would believe. And there are, thankfully, like, a lot of tools now that help us do that weren't around before. Like, when iPhones first came out and smartphones first came out, there was no time limits, or you could limit so many things and put do not disturb on. But I remember, I'm so old at 36, but I remember the day the iPhone came out. I was so excited. I waited in line and I got it. But, like, there was no, like, if there was, I didn't know how to use it. But the do not disturb, the idea. But I
mhm.
remember I was just like, wow, this is a lot of beeping. Like, there's
Yeah.
a lot of things happening all
Right.
right away. It was a whole new world. It was so exciting, and it can be. And I look at my phone and all of anything really with digital as a manifesting tool. Like, I'm really excited about things like the Vision Pro and VR in general, and getting to a point where we could use that as a environmental vision board. I've actually tested some stuff out that people
Oh
have.
wow.
And if you're listening and you hear this and you want to throw some ideas
Wow.
at me, I'm always down, because I always like to promote people and put stuff out there. But such, if you think about it, if you could create, and there's this one that was amazing. So I was like, all right, well, let's do a vacation spot, like let's do Spain. And it's amazing because you just can walk through Spain, and that is you training your brain, and you can use that as a manifesting tool. You got to be careful, of course, like anything else, to not like
Yeah.
just get addicted to that. And I do think
Right.
that feeling the feelings as best you can, like if you
Mhm.
can get outside in your, if you have a place you're not gonna look nuts. I know, like, not everybody has a yard, or not everyone's to walk outside, but if you have like a safe space, like a closed in backyard or front yard or somewhere that, like, you're not like, I'm not advocating you go outside unless you have an absolutely closed in safe space. But if you want to feel the breeze and you're doing something that, in this headset, that is outside, the more you can make the rest of your body feel like it is experiencing that thing. And then what you could do, what we were testing out was, and it's pretty cool, is write a script. It's sort of like a script journal hybrid, and this is where things, I'm always about things evolving and changing, about what that walk was like. And that is then rewiring your subconscious and rewiring your brain to feel like that experience happened. And then it does bring it closer. Like, it's wild how I actually ended up, I didn't go, but I got invited to Spain very shortly after that. And that was something we were arbitrarily, I was like, I don't know, my mom loves Spain, let's just do Spain. Like, it was just like one of those like boom things. I wish I
Right.
could have gone. It was for a talk, but I couldn't. But it was, things like that do happen. And that's the magic aspect, and I think it's fun to,
Mm.
I'm a very obviously science forward person, and I make that clear in hopefully everything I do. But I am very much like, come to me, scientists. I want to help. I want to help you help us, because I believe there's so many, and I know now. I was shocked at what the things I heard after this book came out, as there were so many people that were like, thank you for, and I'm not saying this to aggrandize myself. They were like, thanks, because we have literally, talked to XYZ famous author, or this other spiritual manifesting author, who's used our work in their book to try to explain away or explain how stuff works. And then they won't let us participate or collaborate. And I was like, what? Oh, it was wild to hear, as somebody who, is in that community, not just as an author. I was like, well, that's scary and stupid, but okay. I was like, well, come to me. And I have all these new friends that are scientists or doctors or work at labs, or, are in colleges. And it's so interesting, because I feel like we're getting to this space where science and spirituality, this healthy bridge, is starting to form. And that's why, and I am going to plug,
Hmm.
my friend Mona's book, Proof of Spiritual Phenomenon. It's from Park Press, Inner Traditions. Simon and Schuster, it's the same branch that I'm in. And her name is Dr. Mona Sobhani, S-O-B. Oh my God, Sobhani. Sorry, it took me a second there. And she's fantastic, but she has such a great book. She's a neuroscientist, but she talks about psychedelics, and she talks about her spiritual experiences, and just this idea that, her and I, and there's a group of us that are working together from both, I hate to say sides, but there's such an overlap now that is forming. And honestly, psychedelics are such a big part, I think, in our understanding for people, who don't believe in anything spiritual or anything other. They will, if it is safe for them. I am not a medical professional, so obviously, I'm sure you do this disclaimer a lot, but it is something, I think, for a lot of people that has open up their eyes, and this, open up their minds, if you will, to this idea of there being this other world, whatever you want to call it, but this other part of what we already have, this extension of what we can already see, because so much is filtered from us. And I think that I'm just fascinated by what
Hmm.
psychedelics can do, and what that will mean for manifesting, and for spirituality, and for the world at large, because I think we're coming up on something, like we're on the precipice of a huge breakthrough, where I believe we're going to see this science and spirituality come together in a wonderful way, where both things can exist and cohabitate and help each other, explain each other, and ultimately, I think, will end up becoming the same thing.
Right. Yeah. And it's crazy living right before that, like experiencing small glimpses of that. And you're
Oh,
like,
it's
wait,
nuts.
are you guys feeling
Yeah,
this too? Should I
yeah,
feel
it's so
special?
cool. I love that you said that. That makes me feel good. Like, just knowing that it's like, it's just, small group of us that just like my friends and my small group of friends that were like, okay, this is happening, right? Like this, like it is like they're getting these glimpses of like, whoa, okay, cool, like, and wow, even there's, I think celebrity culture is so weird right now. It's interesting
Mm,
watching because that
yeah,
was my whole life, growing up because that's what I
me
did.
too.
But I'm not like this, like, oh, like I could give it, flying whatever about it. But it's been really interesting watching celebrities, whatever you think of them, uh, who used to be, and this was, very off-putting to me at least, people who I really like to be like, oh, but manifesting is crap, or psychedelics are dangerous. And then I'm not saying that who knows what information they had, and that may be true for what they learned, but it was just this like idea that anything to do with these topics was just like not cool. And people, especially before social media, would just believe that. And that was the cool thing to say, was regurgitate whatever the celebrity was saying. And a lot of times that was very negative towards things like manifesting or psychedelics or spirituality. And now I'm seeing a lot of these people who used to say this have shifts, have changes. A lot of them have done psychedelics. A lot of them have gotten new information about manifesting. A lot of them have really just had awakenings, it seems like. But uh, it's interesting to see this sort of celebrity sort of, it's interesting. There's a cultural shift happening right now with that, and it's interesting to me that it's happening at the same time as the spirituality and science merging is happening. So there's a lot of things. There's a lot of chess pieces right now at play, and I think that anybody paying attention could kind of go like, oh, well, this is really interesting for what the future of our culture will hold and will be like. And I think technology is now expanding at such a rate. Like I said, like if you're listening to this now or 5 years from now, any new tool like AI, and I always advocate, like, let's not be afraid of stuff. Like there's some people are like, oh, it's going to end us. I don't know. I could, there could be a fully somehow conscious AI watching this 10 years and I'm dead because they all killed us and laughing at us. I don't know. But for right now,
Yeah.
stuff like the like I mentioned earlier, like the generative AI, like look at them as tools for your manifesting. Look at them. The only thing that I'm working on, if there's a way to make it happen, I just can't find it yet, is like something like chat GBT writing your script. It doesn't work because it is the actual like hand to brain or typing to brain thing that you're doing where you're getting yourself into the emotional state of scripting. I wish that worked. What you can do though, this is the one tool that if people really want to just like, dip their toe, I cannot guarantee that they're going to get any results, but it could help you kind of find your flow a little bit, is if you want to get ChatGPT to write you a sample of a script about yourself, just to sort of get yourself
Whoa.
into the idea. And it could also be good for few, like pretend it's a year from now. You can, tell it what you wanted to talk about, how great things went, and da 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 da. Make sure it hits all the points, and then you can read it every night. That's something you could do. But again, that's not like proper scripting. I'm working on finding a way to make it
Hmm.
work, because I think there is something there for us, like manifesting wise. But like, I think this technological thing that's happening, a lot of people in the spiritual community are very like there's this other weird merging together. I think there's a lot of fear
Right.
causing some people to get looked at spiritual in a way that I think is really unhealthy. And I think that no, it's like, I am sure people were afraid of the modern pen. Like, I'm sure people were afraid of, there's all these tools we have now that we don't even think twice about, that were at one point probably scary to somebody as the end of the world thing. But I think if we
Wow.
look at all of the like AI stuff, like, yeah, I think there's so many tools. Like like personally, I am obsessed for, like, in my own life, and it works so well. Just using the generative AI for photos, like it's amazing for
Mm.
picture scripts, or even if you don't like picture scripts for your vision boards, you can put yourself, which is picture scripting, into that scenario now. Oh my God, that's amazing. And I think I was talking to a data scientist and a scientist. There's a group with this little group chat thing that we do, and we have like a Zoom every month. And we were talking, it was like spiritual people and scientists. So we were talking about how like two of these guys work in generative AI, and they are finding some really weird stuff, weird, like spiritual, can't be explained by science stuff, where, and I've had a few experiences with this myself, but not as extreme as what they're experiencing, but where the AI will, in one case, put the, they have these, the way they're doing like their sample studies and stuff, it's all lockdown. There's no way the AI should know this, but it put like the mother's name of one of the scientists on the shirt, in the photo, in the test. Like really wild stuff that should not be possible. Like there was another one where someone's grandpa had just died or passed on, and they literally were, the name of the father, the grandfather was in the background, like on a sign. Like, so I'm not saying that that's the grandfather coming through necessarily, or just it could be they don't know, but there have been a lot of really interesting things happening that people can't quite explain. So I do think there's going to be a lot more I know there's going to be a lot more spiritual focus on AI and what it's connecting us to. I think the only danger with it is we don't want that to override this psychedelic revolution that's happening, because I do think that there is sort of this, there's a juxtaposition between like fake, like wearing a screen on your head and experiencing another world versus actually experiencing another world, which a lot of people who safely do psychedelics or under the supervision of, their medical team or professionals, or however whatever's right for them, they are experiencing something. And I do think that, we have to sort of allow both to maybe grow at the same time, but we don't want AI to take away from this other amazing thing that's been around for a while, but I feel like is primed to open so many more people up. And I don't want the people who would maybe have researched whether psychedelics are right for them, to say, oh no, I'm going to try this. And I'm not saying that, the AI can't work, or the 3D glasses or goggles or whatever, the headsets don't work. But I do think that there's a lot of therapeutic benefits to both. That's just my own personal opinion. And I think that keeping an open mind to everything right now that is safe for you is the best way to go about it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I think the most important thing you can do within all of these times is just to stay true to yourself and, keep listening to yourself, I guess, your heart.
Yeah, I think that's, I honestly think that you're in college, right? So this my sister is 10 years younger than me. She's like an old Gen Z, if you will. And I know she is in the year that I think they consider like 97 is the beginning. I don't know. It's
Oh,
a 10th
wow.
but anyway. So she, like, this, your whole generation, and not to sound like the old fart, but like really, I think you guys have such a better mindset of where you are. And I'm a big advocate, like as a millennial who like was just horrified at the way the other two generations treated us. It's just been terrible. It was the most awful thing for 15 years. And then it was like in one day, it was just gone. So
Wow.
I know a ton of millennials who feel this way. We're like, we're just going to stop this trend that began with
Thank
us
you, guys.
to not dump on Gen Z. And I'm just, any other millennials out there listening, just like, let's end this, because we all know how much it sucked for us. It just really was just, we were slammed constantly. We still are.
Everything was for money, like, oh, if this makes me money, I gotta go there.
Right. And there were so many just tropes and memes and things and just like untruth. And it was just this like really negative energy that was coming down. And now it's going to you guys. And I feel like you guys have such a better way. Like you're so much mentally stronger, despite what the press says. From my own personal experience, you guys are just really mentally strong. You have an amazing future ahead of you. And I just, as millennials, I think we have like a duty to not dump on you guys and not like talk crap about you guys or say anything negative about you guys, because I know how much we all hated it. And I have talked to so many millennials who agree with this. We're just all kind of personally taking this stand of like, let's be supportive and like help if you guys want help, not help if you don't want help, just don't interfere, but be there if you guys need us. And I think that's the way we all sort of need to look at each other. And then, I think that there's a really cool thing that could happen as far as all the topics we're talking about, is because if we're working together, because it felt like such an us versus them with the other two generations versus Gen Z. I have so many friends that are in Gen Z. I have so many people that I'm working with now. And you guys are so smart. You're just so much smarter than us with so many things in tech, and just you're so much more open-minded to things spiritually. I think you guys are going to really start a huge shift that we can all work on together, and that would be awesome. But I do think you guys have the ball already, and I'm just really excited to see what your generation does with it. So
I'm excited to see what you keep doing as well, man. I mean, you gave us this beautiful ball right here, which honestly,
thank you. I'm so yeah. I'm hoping the goal was, and it can be. Was supposed to be a book a year. That is technically my deal, my contract. But then they understand, because I did this. But I do have the environmental scripting book, and then another one that should
Wow.
be right after that. So the next year, and then the year after that, the next 2-3 years should have hopefully 3 books coming out. So the wait, there was like a
Wow.
4-year wait for people, but it was mostly because I am my own test subject, and so is my family. So I sort of just like force everybody around me, if they want, friends and family, to be my test subjects. But now I have enough for a couple books that I think will really help. So I appreciate you saying that, but I think you guys have such a cool future ahead of you. I think we all do.
Yeah,
But you
exactly.
guys, it's just such a relief seeing how awesome Gen Z is, and just how like you guys just are. I really truly believe if any generation is going to make this connection between science and spirituality, and just show and lead the world in where we're going to go next and how this can happen, it's going to be you guys.
Yeah. It's gonna be very interesting, man.
Yeah, it's going to be really cool. It's going to be really cool. I'm excited. I'm very excited for the future.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I guess we should end this, man. I mean, I've
I
kept you
know.
for
I'm
so
so
long.
sorry. I feel like I took everybody out. Like, if you're still listening, my God, thank you.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah. So
But
thank you so much for having me.
thank you, man. And where can people find you if anybody wants to reach
Yes,
out or
you
anything?
could just so it's like like a Rolls Royce. So it's roycechristian.com. So ROICE, and then it's Christians instead of IAN, it's just TYN. So it's CHRISTYN.com. The book though is Scripting the Life You Want. I think if you look up scripting and Royce, I'm sure it comes up. I don't know. I just fall into like a puddle if I Google anything related to myself ever. So I don't. So I'm assuming though, I've been told if you Google Scripting the Life You Want book or scripting book, it'll come up. And just remember Rolls Royce if you remember nothing else. That'll help you. A lot of my like my old video game days, I'd always be Royce Rolls. That would be like my
Um,
username, because I would just do it the other way around. But anyway, yeah. So people could find me at my website. We're hoping to do some workshops. I have a show in the UK which is starting back up next year. So if you are in Europe, you can that info will be on my website. We are though. This is cool. We are posting all the episodes from the first season finally. So that should go up on my YouTube in the next month. And there's some really cool celebrity guests on there that talk about manifesting that you would never imagine. So they're finally going to be available in the US. So yeah, subscribe to my YouTube. I'm so weird with social media. I just got yelled at by my publicist the other day about like actually like doing it. So I've made a goal to manifest a decent bigger following, mostly because I will actually start posting on there hopefully. But I know the shows are going up, so that'll be cool. And there's so much information. And again, like if you ever hear a teacher tell you they have the answer to everything, run as far and as fast as you can. I hope anybody who listens to this can just take what we've talked about and use these techniques. And then if they have any questions, my email is super public. It's just my name, roycechristian@gmail.com. I know that's weird for a lot of people, but like I love talking to people who've read the book or who want to ask questions. Give me a minute to respond, but I try to respond to everybody. I
yeah.
don't know. I feel like we all need to be open and connected when it comes to this. And I'm happy and grateful to be in the position I'm in. So if you want to email me, it's just my name at Gmail.
Yeah, and when you said that you like use yourself as a test subject in your family, like I just want to say like please do that, like to try this stuff out yourself and test
Oh
it
yeah.
out.
Yeah, like
No
anybody
post in it,
listed.
break
Yeah,
it.
like I think it's so much fun, and people realize pretty quick, like if you're listening, like test it out, try it out, like have fun with it. Like manifesting law of attraction should not feel scary or not fun. Like it should be fun. This should be fun stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, test it out, like have fun. And it might not be my method. Like there are other people who have other methods that I'm sure and I know work great for people. I've learned so many of my methods from other people, and made them my own. You might take my method and turn it into another book 10 years from now. That would be awesome. Like I'm very much about just, evolving this realm, because I think the more we all learn from each other and teach each other, the better. So yeah, experiment. I am my own experiment. That's what I am in Scripting the Life You Want in that book. And that's what I plan to be for all the other ones and have been, for years, because I want to know the nitty gritty. I want to know if you get on an interview with me and you're like, hey, Royce, I did XYZ and I got nothing. I'm going to be like, yeah, that happened to me. And here's how I fixed it. So that's why I'm a big believer, especially if you're out there and you want to be an author. make sure, especially for nonfiction, that you use yourself as a test subject. So it's also really fun.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I'll let you go. Thank you so much once again. All of that will be in the description, all the links for that.
Awesome. And thank you so much. Seriously, this was a great show. And I wish you all the best. And if you ever want me to come back, I would be more than happy to talk to you because you are one of my favorite podcasts I've ever done. So
Oh my
thank you.
gosh. Thank you, man.
Yeah,
Thank you. It means a
yeah,
lot, of course. All right,
absolutely.
brother.
All right. I'll talk to you soon.
I'll talk to you later. Hare Krishna.